Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
Okay, so I want to show you something, because I think a lot of younger people, and this is building on this, might not realize that there was a time when we really loved these people.
Mm-hmm.
So this is from the Academy Awards in the 80s. Remember when we loved these people?
Yes.
Like, look at the Bruce and look at young Tom Hanks there. Julia Roberts. Back then, when you saw these people, Robin Williams, Arnold, right? This was a time when you could open a Planet Hollywood without people laughing, right? Oh, yeah, that's so cool. I want to go to Planet Hollywood. This is what we get now.
Up for justice!
To stand up for justice!
To stand up for America!
To stand up for America!
Trump is not a legitimate president!
Trump is not a legitimate president!
Trump is not America!
Trump is not America!
We love America!
We love America! Let's hear it! We love you!
Please clap.
Please clap. That was a very please clap moment.
Oh, God.
What happened? What happened? This is something you talk about a lot. What happened from the 80s to now, where these people are just cringe to most Americans? They're just cringe.
I'll try to keep the Cliff Notes version of this. Corporatism crept in. Through corporatism came risk aversion. And part of that risk aversion is the era we've had over the last 10 years with ESG and DEI. Those get brought up a lot, but those things were there, but there were also self-imposed rules. The BBC did the diversity initiative, and it all sounds great. Nobody wants to exclude anybody, but the problem is these things were used to exclude people and keep people out and get rid of them. They were also used, it was a way of getting cheap labor. I mentioned that they don't really hire directors anymore. They cast them. And they tell them what to do, especially like Marvel's particularly bad at that. And they want to parade around. We have the first Arab, American, Muslim, whatever director of this, who is the first Pakistani female superhero of this. And it's just not good because you're not focusing on story. So what happened is, Trump broke Hollywood in 2016. Like it did. There was a golden age coming up of streaming. It was going to be their new revenue stream. Like stuff was pretty good, like especially like prestige series were pretty good in 2000, in the early 2010s. And then something changed, and it was Trump, and they lost their minds, and they dedicated themselves to, especially in pop culture, particularly in tentpole stuff. They started weaving in politics, like ideology, identity politics within the scripts. And it was important because these became platforms. They're no longer entertainment. It became content. And through that, we got just this dreck, and the movie star died from basically social media because we got to know them. And it was all just, and Justine Bateman breaks it down in an article. So it started, in the 2000s, but we didn't really start noticing it until 2016, 17. And now they are dead. Like the Hollywood we knew from what we just saw there, the Academy Awards were called the gay Super Bowl, right? Everybody, we used to have parties. Yes. We used to sit there and watch the Academy Awards, a bunch of dudes, like all my friends and the family and stuff, and had a great time. The women
would put on dresses. They put on elegant dresses for Oscar night.
I remember watching Lord of the Rings win Academy Awards was just a great moment as a nerd, because finally we felt like, oh, finally something that, because Star Wars never won Best Picture. Raiders of the Lost Ark never won Best Picture. Blade Runner was completely it didn't even win special effects, which is a joke. But Lord of the Rings won like 12 Academy Awards. I was like, yes. But we're a long way from that. And I don't know how they turn around. Like, how did we get here? Hubris, greed, ignorance, name it all, and an over-reliance on identity politics, which they're not going to be able to change from anytime. Hollywood takes minimum for not for film, but for TV, the fastest they can change, like shift their culture is a couple 3 years. So we're a 3 years away from them changing, even if they want to. And then there's no movie stars. We're relying on Tom Cruise, who's like the last movie star. And, people mention George Clooney or Chris Pratt, but they're not putting any butts in the seats, like at all, unless Chris Pratt is playing Star-Lord, right? But we come from an age where we would see an Arnold Schwarzenegger film, or to go further back, Burt Reynolds, Clint Eastwood. We used to have a dozen major stars that would put butts in the seats, and now we don't have any. Maybe Tom Cruise, but his last one flopped.
I think like the idea of like art as content is important to that, because like when you think about like you talk about when there was an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, it was an event, it was a chance to see Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now you could watch 1 million Arnold Schwarzenegger videos on YouTube by just typing them in. So these movies are not really events anymore. Much in the same way, like I remember when DVDs came out, I was a huge movie nerd growing up. To get to see the behind the scenes interview of how the movie was made, that was reason to go out and buy a DVD player and go out and get the DVDs, because you couldn't just search that online. Now you can watch a making of special on any movie you want, anytime you want. In terms of like the stuff, in terms of the focus on identity politics, I think that actually, I could sense that under Obama, because I think what happened is when Obama became president, there's this book called The End of History, which came out right after the fall of the Soviet Union, which basically the premise of that book was, now that state socialism is dead and, communism has been shattered, there's no longer any debate about how to organize society. Liberal democracy plus market capitalism, that is the way. There's no longer anything to argue about. I think the election of Obama really represented a sort of end of culture moment, especially for like elite artists, whereas we've elected this very elegant black man, to be the most powerful person in the world. That's sort of the end of the struggle. There's nothing more to say. Whereas when George W. Bush was president, Hollywood did have, you had a movie like Syriana about oil companies and intelligence agencies reorienting the Middle East, sowing chaos for, profits. Even Good Night and Good Luck was about McCarthyism, post-Patriot Act. Even a movie like Brokeback Mountain was counterculture, because gay rights were still sort of counterculture at the time, since George W. Bush won by running against gay marriage a year before that came out. Once Obama became president, it's like they had nothing else to say except sit and rest on their laurels. And then when Trump became president, they were hysterical, but their only response to Trump was to revert to the same sort of cultural posturing that they embraced under Obama, only now in a crisis. So now it's out of desperation. And I think the point you made about, sorry, I don't mean to ramble, but you said a lot of interesting things. No, you said a lot of interesting things. The third thing, the idea of like these diversity programs leading to this sort of banal content, a lot of people get under the misunderstanding that the diversity hiring means they're hiring incompetent directors. No, it's not about the directors being incompetent. It's about what you said, the way the products are made, they are treated like content. They're not treated like art. So you just get a director and you tell them what to do. You tell, okay, this is how we want this film prepared to cater to an audience. I don't necessarily see lack of craft. I see lack of vision from the top. They're just told to manufacture a movie the way a chef is told to cook a meal at a restaurant. This audience doesn't like it spicy, so leave out all the hot pepper, right? That's how movies seem to be made now.
Yes, they're produced.
Yeah,
they're not really created. And I've talked to people behind the scenes who unfortunately want to remain anonymous, but who have called in and said, yes, I was one of those hires. And that's absolutely the truth. I was cast. I wasn't allowed to, I was given books of notes. I wasn't basically, he felt like basically a cinematographer. Like he's like, I'm not able to make any decisions at all in this, and it's terrible. And that's why so many of them don't go back to Marvel shows in particular. They're trying to change that. They're changing their culture now behind the scenes. But you're right. Like during the Obama presidency, who was originally against gay marriage, and then changed his mind. That's when you started seeing, and I think this stuff was happening, but we just started seeing more videos of it. That's when you started seeing, like, I remember that I can't remember, one of the Ivy League schools, one of the students just screaming at a professor.
Oh, I remember that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And at San Francisco State, which was not far from my house, that one black girl that got over that white kid for having dreads, like that stuff started happening, or we started noticing it more in the Obama era for sure.
All right. So, Justine Bateman, in her article, she got a lot into the economic dimension of it. There have been articles written about the infection of venture capital into this realm as a reason why they're hiring younger writers with less experience. They're cheaper. They can push them around more. But we've gotten to a point, and you say, there are similar things happening across spheres of society. We cover politics mostly, but it does strike me, because I take an interest in culture and the kind of content you do, very similar kinds of issues. So, for example, in journalism, Matt Taibbi, the journalist, will often write about how it used to be working class gadflies were journalists. And you can see that in the old movies, right? What was the stereotype of a reporter? It wasn't a guy from Yale. It wasn't a Bob Woodward type. It was like a cigar chewer, right? Well, but Mr. Mayor, what are you trying to say, right? Because that reflected a certain reality. It seems like that's happened with Hollywood as well, where they started to recruit from the elite classes. I think that's how you wind up with people who think that they can abuse audiences and they're just going to take it. I think that's a very aristocratic mindset. But do they have the bench to even change course now? Because those are the people who they brought along.
The short answer is no. They don't. The people they brought up, and this was a disservice to them too, because they didn't come up through the proper channels. Like Hollywood, Justine Bateman broke down that Hollywood has worked for 100 years with a certain system of kingmakers, gatekeepers, tastemakers, people who would curate a career, and not everybody was good enough to get in. It's a specialized industry. Then they started watering it down with lack of talent, not the diversity thing, lack of talent. And it wasn't fair to those people because they were jumped from probably a little higher than they should have been. There's more cases than that than we even know. So the money's drying up because streaming it was a pipe dream. Streaming, they had something they thought they would never have, a consistent stream of revenue. That's something Hollywood's every movie, every TV show is a risk. But unfortunately, they killed their other consistent stream of revenue, ads. Ads and licensing, which was stupid, utterly stupid. So these major studios, and we're not counting Amazon or Netflix right now. We're talking about the old school Hollywood studios. They're all in debt. Disney's probably doing the best, but they don't have any liquid cash to play with, and they don't have the talent, and they have gone all in on streaming. They have no choice. It has to work. The problem is what you brought up earlier, which is people can just click on this and watch it. It's free. You could click on YouTube and watch it, and that's going to be impossible to compete with. So they're going to have to contract. Like Hollywood will be like every industry that's gone digital, because they're now competing against us and themselves. Their back libraries. Like I can watch a new show, or I could just watch an old movie, put it on in the background or whatever. And more often than not, though, I'm watching YouTube. So they have to. I think what's happening now is it's being decentralized, and you're going to see entertainment and movies are always going to be around. TV shows, you're just going to see them made in a lot more areas. We're going to get access to more. I mean, right now, Korean cinema, Asian cinema is great. Anime and manga are killing it right now. And these are from much smaller countries, but the sales are insane. So there is always a market for this stuff. We're just not providing people with what they want, and they'll find it somewhere else. Hollywood will have to deal with that. And we'll see over the next 10 years. My friend Will, the critical drinker, brought it up earlier today. I think the first sign will be, awards season. We see awards shows like the ratings just dip and dip. Dip. This next one will be interesting because there isn't a clear winner for Best Picture. There wasn't a lot of great stuff this year as far as movies are concerned. There's a couple of good ones, but I think it's just going to fade away. It'll always be there in the background, but the music industry used to be a prominent industry. Like back when we were younger, like there would be multiple bands that can sell out stadiums, young bands, new bands. Now it's all like ancient bands selling out stadiums, and it's Taylor Swift and what other
poor Rolling Stones still out there.
God, Jesus. I know. And that's what movies are now. That's what movies are now. Is they're just remaking stuff, and that's the equivalent of rolling out the Rolling Stones again for the 100th time when they're 100.
Well, do you think I've had this theory for a while that really, cultural changes aside, it seems like with the technological changes, with the diversification of platforms, with the democratization of access that's allowed you to build a show, that's allowed us to build a show, this was going to happen. This was they accelerated it with shooting themselves in the foot quite a lot. But it seems like the future for that, like what's going to be left of studio filmmaking, is going to be the Amazon Prime thing, where it's part of a tech company's brand and they can afford to lose money on it because it's not their business. It seems like that whole business model just won't work anymore.
It doesn't. I mean, Paramount is billions in debt. Warner Brothers, who has one of the best catalogs in the world, they control Lord of the Rings, they control Harry Potter, DC Comics. They're billions in debt. Like, how in the hell? Paramount has the most popular scripted show in the world right now. It's Yellowstone, right? And they still can't make money. They still can't figure out what streaming service to put it on because they're dumb. So, you're right. This was always going to happen. That's why at post-election, you've heard a lot of people pinpoint podcasts. It's because podcasts are kicking their ass right now. And it's so easy to do. And it's much better for any kind of interview with a celebrity, whatever's left of them, a politician, sitting down and getting to know them as a human being and not looking for the sound bite, right? Which is what the old broadcast news model was based on. I think, again, it'll always be around, but the money's drying up and it'll always be just a vanity project of some major tech company. And that's what Hollywood's scared to death of, because that vanity project could just, like, Amazon one day and go, okay, we're done with this. It's kind of lame. We're trying to lose money. We need to cut some back. We need to satisfy the shareholders. So just get rid of Amazon Prime or sell it off. They've done it with Comixology. It's a much smaller industry, but they had digital comics. They just they just got rid of it and it's gone.
Well, but it seems like they will not let Rings of Power go.
No, no season 3 announcement yet. The good news, proof that the world is healing, is Clarkson's Farm, one of my favorite shows of all time. Got renewed for a season 5 before season 4 comes out, but they have on Amazon Prime, by the way. But they have not renewed the Rings of Power for season 3 yet. I'm sure they will. They have to save face. But that is one of it's the worst adaptation ever made, period. And it's hateful to the source material. It's hateful to Tolkien, his values, his beliefs, and all the fans who support that.
Everybody come see us on tour. We'll be in Columbus, Dayton, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Lexington, Kentucky, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.